Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott back again for another episode of the Nolecast as we continue our way in the position preview series. Excited to talk about the running backs tonight, but we aren't short of names that we need to talk about. I'll put it that way. A ridiculously talented group, very deep. Probably some future superstars and some really solid pieces of current day. So interesting look at a room. We just ran through it, even taking out some of the, is this a wide receiver? Is this a full or a running back? You still got 6 guys that are almost certainly running backs. So, yeah, interesting conversation we'll have tonight about this position and look forward to jumping into it.
If I just took my hat off and I randomly drew like, hey, Graham, here's your 2 running backs you get for this game. There are very few combinations from this group, which I would be like, yeah, I'm not really feeling this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And mainly because of inexperience with some of those random pairings. Just you lose Trey Benson, and Trey Benson is I think from a running back standpoint, is a big loss for this team. He was a lot of your explosion last year. I don't know that he was the most natural as far as like vision and patience type runner. But I do think some of the struggles in the run game were more related to the offensive line and the tight end blocking than they were simply to Trey. And Trey was the first running back taken in the draft. So I am excited about this running back room. I do think it's a little bit of folly to be like, yeah, that's not a big deal to lose Benson, because Benson was in large part your explosive plays last year. And
he was. I definitely think he left some, some 8 to 15 yarders on the field. I'll also give Trey Benson credit in developing into a better pass catcher than I would have imagined he could have. And, there's plays, most notably the catch he makes up at Clemson, that's just didn't think he had it in him. And that was a reflective of somebody that put in a good amount of work. So good luck to Trey out in Arizona by all accounts. He looks like he's doing well. And we'll talk about it during the linebacker preview, but Kalen DeLoach looks like he's doing well. I'm excited about some of the reports that we're getting of the 2023 Noles as they make their way into the NFL. But no, it's a really interesting group. You go out and add Roydell, and Roydell Williams is going to be one of your, 1 or 2 major pieces. At the same time, you have Lawrence Toafili that's been a little bit of a jack of all trades for this team for quite a while. I just think Toafili will be featured in multiple ways in the offense. Keziah Holmes was maybe your best back in spring and very consistent and can do a little bit of everything. From the first carry that I saw Cam Davis take, I'm like, oh, this is a dude right here. I mean, that's a guy that's going to play ball this year. Sam Singleton doesn't get talked about, but is wildly talented, and it's not uncommon for him to bounce outside and take it to the house at practice. And then, Mekhi Danzy is every practice that I've been at. Look, there's only 3 so far, but he has bounced outside and taken it to the house and just run by people. I mean, that is in 2 or 3 years when we're doing this, I think we may be previewing a wide receiver rather than a running back, but in the here and now, that is an incredibly talented kid. And I look forward to seeing how they use him. So just a real quick run over of the 6. We're just going to call Jalen Lucas a wide receiver for so that we don't have 7 guys to preview in the running backs, I guess. But you could put him, you could put him at either position, in my opinion.
Totally. So starting with Roydell, look, he is not anywhere near as explosive as Trey Benson was. I think if you're going to make up for some of that explosiveness, it's probably going to need to come with play action passing over the top to some of your fast receivers. And I think you'll have far less efficiency and a lot more fits and starts with this offense through the passing game than you did last year. A lot more balls hitting the ground this year, I would expect, than last year, but maybe you get some more explosive plays over the top in theory. But I do think Roydell offers a couple of really nice things. When I look at what he did at Alabama, like he had got 100 carries last year, 111, and he also got 12 targets. He caught 11 of those 12 targets. Now, it's not like the depth of target on them was particularly big, right? Like they're most of them are behind the line of scrimmage type stuff, but still, like 11 and 12 was good. Like that does not suggest to me that he's a guy who can't catch the ball. Although, I mean, 12 passes is a pretty small sample. But there are some things that I like. First of all, his pass blocking grades were pretty high. I mean, he's 225 pounds, so that would kind of make some sense. Like a guy like that has the beef to stand up as a blitz pickup type guy. Um, his success rate was actually pretty damn high. He was on Alabama's team, like one of the highest guys in terms of success rate, like over 50%, which is, pretty nice. Now, Bama does have a pretty good run blocking line. Pass blocking last year was a bit of a different story, as you saw against Michigan. Although, I mean, Michigan kind of just destroyed everybody up front, so I'm not really sure how fair that is. I like the sort of battering ram, efficiency, good vision, not greedy, taking a profit, dependable, not a receiving threat, but if you leave him wide open, can catch the football type thing that he brings. And I think, like, I mean, him and Holmes are both bigger bodies, right? But I think Holmes has a little more. I would say it's probably, if I had to guess here, less consistent, but maybe a little more explosive in the top end. Like like physically may have a little more juice to him. But that skill set I just described with Williams is pretty important, man. Like that is an important skill set to have on a football team, because you have so many other guys that I feel like are, I don't know, I don't call them speed backs, but a little more uh, finesse backs, if you will, or guys that are more of a threat to take it home.
Roy Dell is when you just see him and you look at his lower half, you're like, oh, dude, this guy's he's got a lot of power. I mean, like just he's got thighs that you would think like a Mr. Olympia has or whatever, like big legs, big lower half. Um, I think to go back to what we were saying about Benson. I don't think he's going to take too many 88 to the house, but I do think he's going to hit the 8 to 12 to 15 yarder much more consistently. And he's a real asset in blitz pickup. I think he's a really solid addition, and he's a great fit for what you're doing and the other additions that you made on the offensive line. And we talked the quarterback preview last time about what this offense is going to look like. Uh, I think you're going to get a heavy dose of Roy Dell picking up 7, 8, 9, and Lawrence Toafili, running the ball in various ways, and then being a little bit of a zone buster and halfback. You'll see the angle route and just all the things that you do when you have a talented running back that you can utilize in the pass catching game. I'm excited to see, what this looks like, and yeah, I'm always a big fan of the pistol formation, and we'll see how much they break that out. But I'm fascinated to see what they do with a multitude of two back sets, and you've got 6 or 7 guys here that you can feature, and I'm excited to see just from a formation perspective um, how they go about doing that, and maybe damn the formation. How they go about doing that is they just run the ball more and more than we're familiar with, and you've got a good rotation there, and it takes care of itself. But yeah, it is a really interesting and very deep room. But I think we're right to start the conversation with Roy Dell and Toafili, and then work to Keziah and the rest of the group from there.
All right, so second down is, where can they be better? We've established no one guy is probably going to be as good as Benson was. I don't think anybody's going to be the top running back selected in the draft. Second down, of course, brought to you by Legendary Home Loans team. Chad sent me a bunch of questions, so I picked this one out. 844 FSU Loan. 550 plus Nolecast listeners have decided to go with Legendary team for their home loan. Can they be wrong? Probably not. And I have done it twice. So again, personal testimonial here. I thought it was awesome. Great process. So give them a call, 844 FSU Loan. Also hit the link in the show notes. Where can they be better? Like, if not a certain guy, maybe certain aspects.
Well, I mean, they can be more consistent. We've talked about the fact that, you probably left some of the intermediate runs out on the table. I think I think you can also be better in the fact that, it's not like you ran Trey 31 times or whatever, but it wouldn't surprise me to see 3 guys get 9 carries or 4 guys get 7 carries. I mean, I think where they can be better is that you're gonna be, I imagine this is gonna be somewhat similar to what it looks like at the defensive line as far as a rotation standpoint. I mean, you're gonna be having fresh legs run on and off the field all the time, and, if they're gonna be better, it's because of depth and it's because of, the ability to keep that hot hand out there when you want to, and then also rotate out to allow for recovery. So if they're better, that's in my opinion how they are.
Something else I'll point out here on Roy Dell, 0 fumbles and 0 fumbles lost last year. So you are losing Trey Benson, who was extremely reliable in terms of not putting the football on the ground. Stats and Info, I think, has him as 1 fumble, 0 loss. I think he actually disputes that, right?
He
So,
does. He does. He's a big zero fumble guy. Yeah.
well, even if we give him the 0 to 0 is that's great. That's what you want. Um, I think downfield targets from this group uh, almost certainly going to have to increase, right? So 26% of the receiving targets last year from Philly were graded as deep targets. So about 1 in 4. I don't think that percentage goes up, but I do think that Philly last year had 25 targets. I mean, how many targets do you have this year? 35, 40? Like it's going to be a good number.
Mhm.
Granted, they played 14 games last year, so um, like, are you going to play 14 games this year? You hope so. Clearly, you hope play 15 or 16. But if he gets 40 targets, that's like basically Philly going deep almost once a game at that rate. You almost have to, I think, with what you have at receiver. A couple other notes here. Roydell got a first down on 36% of his carries. Trey got it on 20.5%. So a lot of that, granted, I think is the fact that, Alabama's offensive line is just physically a lot different than what FSU has or had. I think it's improved this year, though, as we'll talk about in a future episode. As far as other guys, like, how do you see the role for Holmes playing now? Like, he's sort of in between where Roydell and Toafili are.
Yeah, he is, but I think he's yeah, I think the 3 of them are going to be the main 3, and then it goes from there. But I do think you found some periods of time where you rode Kazai a little bit in the Duke game. He seemed to be a little bit more featured. I just think I don't know that there's anything that Kazai does uniquely at, like, 9.5 out of 10. But I think he does everything at like 7.5 or 8 out of 10. And um, I do I do think they like I do think they like his ability to run on the outside a little bit more. Not so much like toss sweeps and things like that, but he does a pretty good job of reading some of the edge linemen and reading, where his blocks are and setting up blocks. Uh, I think Kazai will be used, in a lot of very traditional ways, and I think he's just a guy that you bring in, give the ball 5 times in a series and then cycle out a series. But he is kind of your traditional, just running back that you can give the ball to, have a high degree of confidence that he's going to see what he needs to see, attacks the hole aggressively, and picks up what's there to be had.
I'm glad you brought that up because Roydell, his outside carry numbers are, um, granted, it's one season, it's 111 carries, but same sample set as they're just as bad as his inside numbers were good. 3.8 yards per carry to the outside for Roydell. So not a guy that successfully hit the edge really at all for Alabama last year. So that's an interesting point there. Like, I think that's probably why you want to play some of the 2-back stuff. Not that every single time Roydell is going to run inside and
Hmm.
Toafili or Holmes will run outside, but uh, Roydell, I think the patience and the vision are probably the 2 best things that he has. And there's certainly some power there as well. Let's do third down. Brought to you by Concur. Concur has been on fire, dude. Like we had who is it?
Congruity, but yes,
Why am I
Concur.
saying Concur? Oh,
I'm not
because
sure. I'm not
yes,
sure.
I
It
just
must be
submitted my expense reports
something
because
that's. I was gonna say something that's
my corporate card was going to get suspended. So I
current in your life. Yes,
like Mr. Elliott, you are 190 days or whatever it is. So.
it is what it takes sometimes to get you to turn those things in. No, Congruity's been brilliant, and they can help you sorting expenses and all sorts of other things, payroll, HR, um, onboarding. Congruity and Matt Lewis and his team have been a fantastic addition to the Nolecast, and has been great for numerous Seminole associated businesses. And we just got did you see we got a DM today about
I
somebody
did.
else closing a deal with Congruity? So excited about that, and excited that Matt has continued to have the traction that he has from partnering with us. And it's because it's a good product. So congruityhr.com, and big thanks to Matt and his team.
All right, third down. How do you make sure to use the freshman?
So I think I'm going to be fascinated by how this works, man. Because like Cam Davis is not somebody that you're going to be able to hand the ball to and then not go back to at some point. I mean, I'm not saying that this guy's just going to take everything to the house or whatever, but like when you see him carry the ball, you're like, oh, that's a special running back, and special running backs need to start to be featured. I've said what I've said about Danzy and what the staff thinks of his physical talents. And I mean, Sam Singleton is just a super uh, talented back that has the ability to send a house call on a lot of them. He may not be quite as fast as Danzy or whatever, but he's a super fast back that has good vision and is a great rotational piece. I'm interested, man. I don't know if it's you know I think you got to stretch defenses with these backs. I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't see just end arounds and things like that with how you want to use these guys. The freshmen in particular, Cam Davis maybe not as much, although Cam is a exceptional athlete, and I know he was running either a traditional bone or wing tee or whatever it was at Doherty, but a high school quarterback that still has a lot of athleticism about him. I think you can use these guys in a multitude of ways, and I also think you'll see Danzy motion out and they'll try to get him pinned against what we traditionally call a strong safety or an outside linebacker, and that's going to be a real hard for that, a real hard task for that guy. So that's kind of roughly how I see them using the younger guys.
I think so too. It's fascinating to me because I think some of their skill sets are a little bit similar to what you already have on the team in some ways. Like now we kicked Lucas to the receiver preview, which we're about to record in just a minute. But like Danzy and Lucas from a overall speed perspective. Now Lucas is more shifty and Danzy's a little more straight line, at least to my eye. Uh, but both those guys are dudes you want to get the ball in their hand, and so is Toa Philly, right? And then Davis profiles as a guy who would be an excellent wildcat option, especially down there on the goal line, given that he's like 5'10", 220. But you know who else is already really good in the wildcat?
Yeah,
Toa Philly.
Joe Philly. Yeah,
And Toa Philly it's got that SR next to his name. So they're probably going to want Toa Philly to be the guy in Wildcat in important games because I just kind of prefer my senior to be handling the ball there as he runs the Wildcat pretty well. But, Cam can throw it a little bit. So
I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't have if Cam didn't. If they're running the Wildcat, if Cam's not doing it, from like the 6 yard end or
yeah,
whatever, and Toa's doing it, everywhere from there. But
that makes sense.
you know, I haven't seen him run any Wildcat at practice, so I don't feel like I'm giving anything away when I talk about that. But just when you look at their body types, that's wouldn't surprise me if that's what comes to fruition.
Probably not going to rep a lot of Wildcat in the first 3 days of practice, but
That's true.
hey,
That's true.
at some point they certainly will, and everybody knows they have done in the book because Norvell's been running good offenses for like a decade now. So,
Yeah,
um,
you can watch their most recent competitive football game too if you want to, and you'll be reminded that the Wildcat is a prominent part of this offense.
Man, I gotta say, like, I don't know if any of these guys can make all conference because this is such a loaded, conference of backs, but also it's a loaded room here, and I do think they'll share the wealth quite a bit. But there's not a lot of rooms that I would trade this one for. Like I feel like your depth here is exceptional, and you got to feel really, really pretty good about it. Now you lose a lot after this year, but they're recruiting, pretty well overall. So, um, fourth down brought to you by Charlie Park. Make sure you get a reservation, and also Mad. So no reservation needed there, but always packed on game days as well. I know Graham's been hitting up Charlie Park quite a bit when he is in town. Charlie Park Rooftop Restaurant, brought to you by our friend Matt Thompson and the restaurant group. All right. What's your ideal run pass ratio for this team?
58-42, something like that.
Like
60-40, somewhere in that
heavy run.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I probably wouldn't go quite to 60, but yeah. I mean, I think and we'll do the offensive line preview either tonight or tomorrow, and we can talk further about it, and you get an idea as to what that group looks like. But yeah, I think you're going to run and run to set up the pass and set up some deep shots. But I think the run's going to be a significant part of this offense.
I do too. I mean, especially in the first 4 games of the year, right? Georgia Tech, Boston College, Memphis, Cal. Memphis actually run defense wise was comparatively to their pass defense was just fine. Their pass defense was an abomination. Boston College has certainly lost quite a bit. Georgia Tech, horrendous run defense last year. New coordinator, not a whole lot in the transfer portal. We'll see what they do. Cal's run defense was kind of hit or miss, but I mean, you're 2 touchdown favorites ish in each of those opening games. And then you go, to SMU, which I don't know. I'm not really sure how I feel about SMU. You're going to run the ball a lot, I think, in that opening month, a whole lot, as the passing game hopefully comes together, coalesces, all that kind of stuff. I think I'm with you. They're going to run the ball more than they pass the ball this year. If they don't, that is probably not a year that you want to have. And I'm talking regular season, because by the time, if you make the playoff or something like that, which is very possible, clearly, then I mean, you probably are not going to be 60-40 against a really good team in the playoff, because most of the really good teams are going to shut the run down. So regular season, I am going to go more run in the pass, man.
And you have a good offensive line and a continuing to develop offensive line, but I'm still not sure you're going to have an offensive line that if you're playing a SEC team in round 1 that of the playoffs that you're going to stat I gave, maybe a little aggressive, but it's certainly reflective of the regular season. I'll put it that way. So
Knowles fans got to be really happy about this room. A lot of guys to cheer for. Some young talent clearly in the room as well. By the way, we should say Sam Singleton is still a guy I think is in the plans long term. So definitely got to keep an eye out for, even if it's sort of hard to project a lot of touches if he's RB6 ish in this room, depending on where you see, because there's only one ball. At this point, I feel like FSU should just line up in a 0 receiver, 0 tight end, 5 running back formation and go from there, because they are, if not a lot of high NFL draft picks, a lot of guys that I think will probably play in the NFL. So awesome, man. I'll see you in just a minute to record the receiver preview.